The sign outside the International Criminal Court represents the staging ground for a sudden diplomatic shockwave. Turkey is using this institution to demand an international arrest warrant. It targets Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, attempting to legally paralyze Israeli leadership on the global stage. While legal briefs were being filed in Europe, a simultaneous kinetic military strike was already underway. Israeli fighter jets bypassed the diplomacy entirely to bomb the Abu al-Dahor airbase inside Syria. A direct military clash involving Turkey is a terrifying prospect for global security. Turkey is a very powerful NATO member, a nation that has traditionally avoided any direct state-on-state military confrontation with Israel. This level of coordination reveals the execution of a calculated multinational strategy playing out in real time. Turkey is actively adopting the Iranian playbook. By using third-party nations and funding rebel groups, Ankara is building a sophisticated proxy machine to wage a shadow war against Israel without ever declaring a formal war. The Mavi Marmara serves as the primary example of Turkey's flotilla strategy. Ankara sends these 8 ships straight toward the Mediterranean coast to intentionally test Israel's naval blockade of Gaza. The setup is a legal trap. Israel maintains the blockade to check for smuggled weapons, forced to intercept the incoming ships. When the inevitable friction happens at sea, Turkey uses the incident as grounds for intervention from the International Criminal Court. President Erdogan is playing a specific geopolitical game. By positioning himself as the most aggressive antagonist to Israel, he is attempting to replace Saudi Arabia as the leader of the Muslim world. The international arrest warrants and the flotilla missions dominate the headlines. They serve as a diplomatic smokescreen, distracting the international community while Turkey silently builds up military assets right on Israel's borders. That military buildup is occurring under the cover of a massive power vacuum. With the fall of Bashar al-Assad's government, al-Shara now leads a new rebel government in Syria, a regime Turkey is heavily exploiting. Instead of massing troops on their own border, Turkish forces moved deep into Syrian territory. They took control of the Abu al-Dahor airbase, positioning themselves a mere 250 kilometers from the Israeli border. From that airbase, Turkish military personnel began actively arming and training local Syrian proxy groups. It is a direct copy of how Iran spent decades building up Hezbollah in Lebanon. From the high vantage point of these concrete military trenches on the Golan Heights, Israel has a clear view into Syrian territory. Their policy regarding heavily armed proxies gathering on this northern frontier is absolute zero tolerance. The debris and shattered hangars at the Abu al-Dahor runway provide visual proof of Israel's response. They launched a precise, violent strike exactly where Turkish forces were operating, completely leveling the infrastructure. Israel is forcing Ankara's shadow war into the light. By striking preemptively, they are ensuring that a second Hezbollah cannot take root in the chaos of the new Syria. Supplying a proxy war in a neighboring country requires a massive logistical backbone. For that, Turkey has turned to an unlikely partner, Pakistan. This Turkish Air Force transport plane represents a bustling new supply chain. Intelligence agencies recently tracked Turkish military cargo planes and shipments of Chinese defense equipment landing directly at Pakistan's Norcon airbase. This logistics network is backed by the Mecca Pact, a mutual defense understanding between Turkey, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia to guarantee each other's security. Just days after the Israeli airstrike, Syria's new foreign minister was officially welcomed in Pakistan. The visit signaled that Syria is actively being integrated into this protective military pact. For Pakistan, this is a geopolitical transaction. They are trading weapons and staging grounds for a critical financial bailout. This coalition turns a localized border dispute into a massive multinational logistics network. Pakistan and China supply the hardware, Turkey provides the training, and Syria provides the battlefield. Turkey can afford these aggressive steps because they operate behind the most powerful legal shield in the world, the NATO Charter. Under Article 5, an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all. If Israel were to strike Turkish soil, they risk dragging the US and Europe into war. This legal force field pushes the violence into the gray zone, forcing both nations to engage strictly inside a third, broken country, Syria. When Iran funded proxies, they largely operated as an isolated rogue state. Now, Israel is facing a coordinated, state-sponsored alliance with deep international ties. As smoke billows from residential buildings in Syria, the local population is caught in the crossfire, absorbing the collateral damage of an outsourced war. The chaos is driven by Turkey's imperial ambitions and Pakistan's financial opportunism. Israel now faces a sophisticated, multinational proxy machine. This new opposition operates with the logistical support of Asia and the diplomatic immunity of a NATO superpower.